Good evening, Chicago! Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and welcome to Monday Night Raw!
I think she's pandering a bit. Slightly.
Now, Mick Foley had a very, very busy Christmas, so I have given him a well-deserved night off. So if you guys could keep that up for about 2 minutes and 15 seconds, you'd last 1 second longer than Punk did.
It is Review a Raw. I am John Pollock along with Wai Ting, and it is the post-Christmas edition of Review a Raw, coming a little bit later. But how are you, Wai?
Good. This is the last one of the year.
The last Review a Raw of 2016, and the question on everyone's mind, Wai, is did you and your family go out for food on Christmas, and what did you get? Was it Chinese food, as you guessed it might be?
Yes. And yes. Yeah. No, not much mystery to be had.
Where did you go?
We went to a Mr. Kanji.
Oh.
Yeah. But before that, we actually went to a church.
Like to mass?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of.
The way you said it, like you just went and visited a church. Well,
I don't even know what a mass really is. Like,
have you ever been to mass before?
I think I have. I don't even know. I don't even know what is the difference between mass and a regular Sunday at church.
Well, it's all relatively the same. But you went on Christmas Day. What spurred this on? Do your parents go to church?
No, they don't. But I was just curious, and more importantly, I think I just want to see some like music. And my mom, I guess, knows plenty of people in the scene, in the Christianity scene,
the choir scene.
Yeah, in the choir scene specifically. Yeah, my mom loves to sing. So so she had a friend invite us. And I went, and it was a good time. Though the sermon was like 45 minutes, and it was really boring.
45 minutes?
Really long. And
that's too long.
And it was like a Chinese church, so they did it in Chinese, and they had a dude translate at the same time. So it probably took twice as long for that reason. So anyway, that part was really boring. But the performances were dope.
Wow.
Dope. Yeah.
Cool. Are you going to become a regular churchgoer?
No, not for this.
Not enough incentive.
Yeah, maybe once a year. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
Once a year, it's like going to a concert.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, that's great. I have not gone to church in maybe a decade. But it's still around.
Yep.
So that's cool. Mm-hmm. Did you see any people, like this is in your neighborhood you grew up in? Did you see anybody that's one thing, church. It brings a lot of people together.
Yeah, it wasn't really in my neighborhood. It was kind of outside of it. But no, I didn't notice. No.
Did your dad have a review?
No. He actually slept in. He didn't go.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he slept there. That would have been fun.
That would be interesting. No, that didn't happen. Yeah. How was your Christmas?
It was pretty good. It was a lot of traveling. We went, as I was outlining, me and my wife go to one family on Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day we went to Barrie, Ontario, the home of John Ramdine, and not to literally his home, but he lives in Barrie. We went elsewhere in Barrie, and then drove back to my parents' place on Christmas night. So it was a lot of driving, and I ate a lot of food on Christmas, so I was very full by the end of it. And then Boxing Day, I took in Raw from Chicago, which I got to say, it was kind of weird to watch Raw and not be looking at my clock to make sure that I'm on pace to finish this, and then have to go out after Raw's over and go work and chat with you in person.
Right.
We had till Tuesday. I mean, it was kind of strange to watch Raw leisurely.
Did you like it, or did you prefer having that pressure?
I kind of like the pressure. I won't lie. Because I feel once I watch the show, I want to review it afterwards. And instead, it was an experiment because I had all these extra hours to truly digest Raw. And what does this all mean? And what can we discuss rather than just going straight off the top of my head? So I had detailed thoughts on Raw.
Right. I do think you do need a bit of pressure to watch this 3-hour show, because this 3-hour show ended up taking me like probably 5 hours to watch. I just
Wow.
I was watching it, and then I got distracted partway through, so I paused the show and went on the internet for maybe a half hour in between, and then this happened multiple times throughout the 3 hours. Whereas, when I'm laser focused on a typical Monday night, I try to get this thing done in 2 hours so we could do the show right afterwards. So I do think you need a bit of pressure.
You know what I did? I actually watched more Raw than I actually needed to, because once Raw was done, it's like midnight or so, and I've got the WWE Network up, and I don't know why I thought this, but I was like, wonder what Raw was like a couple of years ago, just to contrast it to today. And I went to a Raw episode from 2010, and just for the sake of the same time of the year, I picked the post-Christmas Raw in 2010. I only watched the first segment of it, but it was interesting because it was right after CM Punk. He had been on commentary for the last couple of months because he was hurt. And then on the prior week's Raw, he finally got up from the announce desk and he attacked John Cena. So this Raw, it was John Cena's response to Punk's big attack. And I watched this segment, and it's kind of funny, given that CM Punk was mentioned on this Raw, how infuriating this response was from John Cena. I mean, people get on him for his comedy stuff. He is so much better now than he was in 2010, where he came out and he just cut joke after joke about this vicious attack by CM Punk, who then came out, and you've got John Cena just like making more jokes, and it leads to Punk eventually just cutting him off, saying, "Nobody here finds you funny, John. Please stop it with your jokes." And it's like he's trying to cut this big heel promo, and Cena just laughs it off. He's just coming up with his next witty line, and it was the most infuriating segment. And I said, well, that was Raw from 6 years ago. Good night.
Yeah, now that we're 6 years past that, perhaps what really was the point of writing Cena like that, or having Cena come out and playing that type of character?
I feel it was a lot of the template of what the top babyface needs to be. They have to be versatile in comedy, and that was such a big emphasis on so many. And I mean, there's some of that today, but just watching this promo, this was magnified, where I feel they looked at a top star and they looked at The Rock. It was like, everyone's got to be The Rock, who could take maybe some unfunny jokes, and his delivery just overcompensated for everything. And you have CM Punk outlining all the reasoning for his heel turn, and Cena cuts him off by yelling, "Balderdash. That's untrue." And it's just, groaning. It was awful. It's like, man, this poor guy, Punk, no wonder he wanted to get out of that place. It's like, here is a top program, and it's like you just did the big attack, and you have this guy coming in and urinating on the heat. It's like he already said, it's like, who cares? People always turn on each other. That was essentially the essence of this John Cena reaction to this vicious attack the week prior. Anyway, you are beyond not caring about this promo from 6 years ago, are you?
I'll have to see it. But yeah, I don't really care.
One final thing before we get into Raw. Are you going to watch UFC 207 this Friday night,
yes,
not Saturday?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
It's so amazing to watch all of this involving Ronda Rousey, who is not doing anything this week. And that has become the big story about Ronda Rousey, not doing anything. I just finished the Countdown show. She didn't even do an interview with the UFC for the Countdown show. They had to use a video interview of her with Time and credit Time on their own Countdown show because they don't have a new interview with Ronda Rousey.
That's amazing. Wow. I think That's really interesting.
It's almost amazing that they were able to shoot that promo with her, given how she has cut everything out. There is no press conference this week. She is not attending media day. She will have to weigh in. But I mean, her presence is just, I don't know. I don't know if this is actually going to add more intrigue, that there's so many questions about this woman, but I don't know. We're kind of in that bubble where it's like, it's a big fight to me on Friday. I'm really intrigued by this card. But is the masses aware that Ronda Rousey is fighting on Friday?
I don't know. And it's really hard for me to predict kind of a general population's interest in MMA, in particular with the Ronda fight, because I get the sense that not many people are talking about it. Not many people know that she's coming back. Mm-hmm. That's the sense I get. But I mean, I also don't know. I'm not necessarily in the circles that, Ronda seems to reach. So it's really hard to say. Plus, though, the fact that it's Friday, I think will really skew whatever results, happen. You can blame it on her lack of media, but you can also just as much blame it on Friday, or a combination of both if this show doesn't do well. If it does do well, then I don't know why. Then I guess she's just an amazing person to be able to get a great number without even doing any press. But as a fan, I feel like the fact that she's not doing any media carries like a real mystique. It's like the Undertaker, only showing up for one episode before WrestleMania, or Brock Lesnar not doing any interviews before a big wrestling match. The fact that she's not appearing shows that she's really taking her fighting very seriously, and that makes me a lot more confident in her being at her best on Friday.
She's a UFC part-timer.
Yeah. I mean, they're all kind of part-timers, aren't they?
Well, yes. I'm just making the WWE analogy
of
what they would label them. But that would be a great post-fight promo if she wins. And she just says, Joe, I'm an amazing person.
How much press is Amanda Nunes doing? Because I'm not hearing that much from her, and I feel like this is kind of her chance to really step into the spotlight. And
definitely. I mean, she's pretty heavily. I mean, her interviews and footage is what carries the countdown show, which I imagine they had to redo at the last minute when Cain Velasquez fell out, because you would have to figure that fight was figured in there. So they have half the show is on Rousey and Nunes, and it's all either this time interview, old clips of Ronda, and stuff they've shot in Brazil with Amanda and in Florida at ATT. So she's all over the countdown show. There's also a fantastic article on MMAfighting.com by Guilherme Cruz. It's an extensive look at Amanda Nunes' her life story, essentially.
Right.
But yet she's not at the Ultimate Media Day either this week, which I think is a total mistake on her part if she's not going there. Because
did she do that in protest to Ronda not showing up?
I don't know if it was her call or the UFC gave her the option but even if she was given the option, I would have 100% gotten there, because the general public doesn't know who Amanda Nunes is, and this is at least an opportunity going into this, because there's so much, what would be the best term? Like, there's this hunger for Ronda, and any angle they can get at, people will talk to Amanda just because she's the opponent, I would feel. Like, mainstream outlets, I'm sure, are interested in this fight, and she should be all over that stuff if I was her.
Yeah. I think in place of Ronda, she should have a representative. Like a Paul Heyman to his Brock Lesnar.
Oh, an advocate.
Yeah. And
Edmund.
I guess it would be Edmund. He'd be, but man.
Judo Gene LaBelle.
Yes. Way better option. Way more likable.
Way better
Judo
promo.
Gene. Yes.
Gosh, that's, you say that jokingly. That's not the worst idea. Like, she sent her team there to talk on her behalf. They have prepared statements. Send Heyman. Heyman would do it.
Yeah, he would.
Man. This is the evolution of MMA going into 2017.
By the way, great job on the MMA report this week.
Oh, thank you.
One of your best. One of your best.
Yes, which does feature an interview with Ronda Rousey that I did, but it's from 5 years ago.
Yeah, John put together basically, a great audio documentary of Ronda Rousey's career up to this point, and I don't know how you dug up the clips that you dug up, but you managed to find the perfect sound bites for every little thing you were trying to illustrate, from the beginning of Ronda's career in Strikeforce up to this point where, man, the great clip that you found of her talking about how if she ever, like, she was criticizing other people for losing and giving up, but if she ever lost, she would just kind of shake it off and just jump right back in. And, obviously the result of her losing being what it was, it said a lot more. So you managed to find some great clips, and I urge everybody to check that out.
Well, thank you. But some of them were just totally flukes that I found, including one clip. It was 2011 when everyone thought Gina Carano was coming back, and she's asked about fighting Gina. And she said, yeah, I'd love to fight her, but I'd like to fight Amanda Nunes. This was in 2011 she said that. I thought that was kind of just an interesting clip to hear, that this is a woman that was definitely on her mind right during the infancy of her career as well. This is not just some woman that popped up out of nowhere and she's only fighting her because she won the title. I mean, that's the premise for this fight, but this is someone Ronda's been at least aware of for a long time, and someone she wanted to fight going way back.
It also showed. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, I was going to say it also really showed you how friendly she was with the media at one time, in contrast to how she's treating this fight, and almost.
Oh, it's so different. She was so energetic and just seemed to love doing it. It didn't seem as much as, even as it grew and grew in the UFC, like she seemed to really enjoy talking and promoting. And I think she knew it had a purpose, and she was smart enough to know the role that it played in building her. And it seems that I think that's one of the most interesting parts of this whole thing, is just how that's completely changed.
Yeah.
And she's just shut the door to all of it, essentially.
If she loses, you think she retires?
I think there's a good chance if she loses, this is the last fight of her career.
If she wins, you think she retires?
No, I think she will continue if she does win. But a second loss, I don't know. I really don't know how this fight is going to go. I think it's so hard to just bet against Ronda Rousey. And I'm not one to put all the stock into just the, what's her state of mind, and it's like, who knows? Everyone responds differently. Maybe she's going to come out and blitz through this woman on Friday, but maybe not. But if Amanda Nunes wins this fight, it's not going to stun me in the least. I don't know who's going to win this fight on Friday.
Yep.
But let us get into Raw from Monday night in Chicago.
When Raw ends, when it's time to begin, it's on the review of Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting, the A-team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Review of Raw for Monday night, download it Tuesday morning from the Fight Network site. It's Review of Raw for Monday night on USA Now, on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
And Wai, we kicked off the show with a recap of Braun Strowman's destruction last week, and this was clever editing because they had the clip of Mick Foley explaining that Sami Zayn left hours ago and edited out the "he's 100 miles away" line. So we got rid of that, I guess, thinking that 100 miles was definitely a U-turn away from him making it back to Raw last week. And the replay of Sin Cara's death by Christmas tree.
Yes, which a bit of a repeat we saw tonight.
We got the Christmas set again, which I must say, as we continue this Braun push, I'm fine with this Christmas set right up until the Rumble. Maybe it's going to be a Wai Ting Christmas set until March.
Yeah, I don't know.
This Christmas set has definitely, to me, assisted Braun Strowman, because him carrying these trees and throwing them has become... That was one of my favorite things on Raw again this week.
Why stop there? Why not dress the guy up as Santa? Dye his beard white, and he could just be like angry big Santa.
That's when the push is done and he's being transitioned down. Then we can make him Santa Claus next year.
So maybe in the weeks ahead we'll have like the trees starting to brown, the needles starting to shed. And every week it's just like, no.
Or Braun has his own entrance. Like on the floor, he comes out from the side where it's still decorated.
He's just like a Christmas character now. He's the Yeti, is what he is.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if these trees will be making a return, but on the day after Christmas, I could buy it.
Will the Christmas set be on SmackDown tonight?
Oh, good question. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say even the 27th is a little too late for the WWE.
I'm gonna say yes.
Wow.
I'm gonna say we get one more night of the Christmas set.
Bold predictions on this show.
There was a sign on the opening pan of the crowd that read, "My name is Kevin Owens, and I'm so fat I have to wear an undershirt."
An undershirt? You mean just the shirt?
Yeah, that's not an undershirt that he wears.
Yeah.
That's a shirt.
Unless he wears... I think he only wears one layer, so... What a terrible sign. What a really bad sign.
You know what Kevin Owens would call it, since he does sell a good amount of merchandise?
What's that?
An overshirt.
Ah. Nice.
Stephanie returns. She wishes everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy Holidays, covering all her bases. And Byron openly asks if she's pandering to the crowd. She says Mick Foley has the night off, and then we start with the big CM Punk chants. We are in Chicago at the Allstate Arena, and she says, if you can chant that for 2 minutes and 15 seconds, you would last 1 second longer than Punk did. And that was the line everyone was discussing throughout Monday night. Her shade cast upon one Phil Brooks.
Oh, I just turned off Raw right then and there.
That was it.
This was the highlight of the show, by far. What a great line.
It was a very good line, and clearly one she had prepared for tonight.
Yes. I mean, I don't doubt that she has the ability to come up with this on her own, but it wouldn't have surprised me if this was a team effort. You know, like this was, dare I say it, an ethering of the CM Punk chant. This line.
Boy. And totally shut down the Punk chants. I mean, they came back briefly later on in the night, but this killed them. I thought we were getting a whole night of these Punk chants, and I thought this line could maybe backfire and they just double down on their support of Punk. But nope, they're like, okay, we're done. And we moved on with the promo.
Do you think it shows you anything about the current status of the relationship between the CM Punk and the WWE?
That it's not good, that there's a lawsuit in play?
Right. Yes.
So I don't think it's changed much. I think it was an easy line for them to use, and they had to know going into Chicago, there's a pretty decent chance we might get hit with these, and Stephanie had a line to shut down the chants, and it did work. But I was curious if this crowd would just get angered at this. But I think that there's like when you see CM Punk chants now, it's like there are people that really get upset at other fans for starting those chants. There's a real divide, I feel, of people that just go to these Punk chants. I mean, we're coming up on 3 years since this guy left.
I don't even think it's just the Punk chants. It's a lot of kind of the standard trolling type of chants that I feel like audiences now are starting to get sick of. You know what I mean? We're starting to see kind of the anti-smart mark reactions because I think the smart marks have been so vocal over the past several years.
Seth Rollins then came out and wished them a Merry Christmas, and Stephanie is asked about Christmas, and Stephanie says she burnt the roast a bit. Rollins then asks if she got Triple H a new leather jacket and NXT pajamas for Christmas, and says what Hunter needs is his manhood back, and asks what Stephanie has in her purse. Is it his snowballs or a Yule log? Oh, boy.
You'll be watching this.
I thought I was watching another old episode of Raw with this line.
You'll be watching this in 6 years, and hopefully Seth Rollins will have made a similar transformation. Because
maybe this was his John Cena tribute. Maybe he too watched that Raw from 2010.
It was some really bad babyface material, and on top of that, I think his delivery, there's something wrong with it for the type of babyface that he's trying to portray. I think when he speaks, it just still comes across as really whiny to me, almost to the point where him coming out talking here made Stephanie kind of look like a babyface, which is not an easy feat to do.
So Stephanie says that when Rollins goes low, she goes high. Her Hillary Clinton line. And Seth Rollins begs Triple H to come out. She also, I guess, positioned Rollins then as Donald Trump with that line. So Seth Rollins begs Hunter to come out, but Stephanie has him back in the office or at home with their kids. And she is ruining his legacy. How dare you be a professional and a father? And she says that Hunter is more of a champion than Rollins ever will be. And he came to Chicago for a fight, and he wants a match with Braun Strowman. Roman Reigns came out, and the crowd started chanting, "Please don't talk," and then booed as he did. And he also wants Strowman. We went back to some Punk chants here, as Rollins and Reigns are arguing over who gets Strowman. And then Rollins said, and I quote, "We'll teach Strowman a lesson the way we used to teach people lessons." He didn't have a fine segment here, speaking-wise.
It happens.
Stephanie loves this, and she puts her fist in the middle for the old Shield hand gesture, and says that SmackDown Live is in this very same building tomorrow night, and a certain lunatic fringe may be in the area, and suggests we have a Shield reunion tonight, getting the fans excited, chanting yes, and then just tears them down, saying it's not happening. And Stephanie makes Rollins against Strowman and Reigns against an opponent of her choosing for the U.S. title later tonight. But up next is a tag title rematch. And that concluded our opening segment, where I've got to say overall, I thought Stephanie was pretty entertaining here.
Yeah, she really comes across like she's having a lot of fun out there. And it's very apparent in how comfortable she is. It's very clear that, people hate Roman Reigns. I don't know how crazy people are about Seth Rollins either as a babyface, but it's universal, the love everybody still has for the Shield. So in order to kind of babyface both guys, they did just that, brought up the Shield, brought up that, hey, I know you guys don't like these guys too much right now, but you remember how great they used to be when they're together. And the constant teasing of the Shield, I mean, I feel like it's getting a little overdone at this point because of how many reunions we've had, pseudo reunions we've had with the three of them over the past year.
They just did one on Tribute to the Troops that, granted, no one saw. But you're right. It's just something that it's almost like this idea is more over than the individuals at this point.
They're kind of abusing it. But I can see that. Right, but right now it's kind of the only thing, especially like a Roman Reigns. It's the only thing the guy really has that universally endears him to as a babyface to all of the audience. So I can see them relying on it a lot more heading into WrestleMania.
So our tag title rematch was Cesaro and Sheamus against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. And the New Day came out and they were feeding fans cereal with a ladle and just dumping it over guys.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also a sign facing the hard camera that read Cesaro with the people across the row with individual letters. How did that take so long to come up with? Very clever.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess there's always a section. But within the section are the Cesaros.
Yes. You're right. The Cesaro would be smaller than the Cesaro section.
Yeah.
So we need Cesaros.
Cesaros in the Cesaro section. And then what do you call it? And then the seats would be seat Cesaros.
And they'll all have cornrows. No, that's one too many. They actually broke this down and said that the New Day wanted the speed advantage, and thus they have utilized Xavier Woods in place of Big E.
I really like that.
Yeah.
It's rare when the announcers try to actually talk psychology in the matches, so I love it. And it helped because
they lost the match, and they're changing their game plan around.
Yep, and Kofi and Xavier actually worked a much faster style in this match. They were almost working like two cruiserweights against Cesaro and Sheamus, and it also helped set them up as the undersized underdogs against them. And Cesaro and Sheamus didn't necessarily play heel, but they were certainly playing the more aggressive and dominant team in the match.
And the New Day also, to my knowledge, didn't do any media since the loss.
Wow.
At Roadblock, and now they're coming back. Maybe Big E is kind of he's not willing to come back yet, and he's in a dark place since the loss.
Yeah.
And we might not see him for 13 months. New Day is in control. with Cesaro. They were stomping him in the corner, and then Sheamus yanked Woods from the apron to the floor by the hair as they go to break. We come back. Woods is being attacked. He came back with a tornado DDT through the ropes to the floor onto Cesaro. Kingston was in, hit a Tope Con Hero to Cesaro on the floor, then blocked the Irish Curse into an SOS for a near fall. They worked this around a number of near fall spots. Woods scaled the ropes, hit the elbow drop across the ring to Sheamus, and then Cesaro hit the Cesaro swing to Woods. Big E gets on the apron. He's distracting the referee as Cesaro catches the Trouble in Paradise and then catapults him into the ropes. I don't know if Big E was supposed to be on the ropes, but Kingston just went into nothing in the ropes. And then Kingston was pressed onto Big E onto the floor. Woods got a schoolboy for a 2 count, and then Sheamus made the blind tag. And as Woods was going for the honor roll, he rolled right into a brogue kick, and Sheamus pinned him. I thought a very good tag match. I think that these two teams have very good chemistry together and some creative finishes that they've had both at Roadblock and then tonight as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a good match, good near falls, and a really great crowd that seemed to be into both teams throughout the match. And this crowd, I think, well, especially Chicago, but I feel like in this week and last week, the yay boo thing that Sheamus and Cesaro are doing is starting to kind of take off. But now they're booing Sheamus sort of as a sign of affection, kind of like the Kurt Angle "you suck" deal. And you know, these two have something, but I can't really say. I still feel like they have a bit of a ways to go, especially to capture kind of some of the amount of success that the New Day had, you know, as a tag team. I feel like Cesaro and Sheamus have a ways to go. And who do you think they move on to after?
Yeah, it's a good question. It feels like Anderson and Gallows are going to be next.
They're probably the only team, right? I mean, they have to be heels, and who else do you really have?
Like you could do, like the idea of a 3-way with the New Day. I mean, even going back to Anderson and Gallows for the tag titles, like it's not, doesn't sound great.
No, not at all.
Like the matches will be fine. It's just how interested are people in these programs?
Also, for at least next week, you have them tied up with the Golden Truth, Gallows and Anderson.
Right. So, some wonderful stuff to look forward to in the tag division. Then there was a promo for John Cena's return. They were really pumping up SmackDown for Tuesday night, which I don't know how we haven't seen the Raw number yet. This is going to be an interesting one to see if this is the first time during the brand split that SmackDown does a bigger number than Raw, because that show has been promoted very heavily with the title matches and Cena's return for Tuesday. There was a video package for Lesnar and Goldberg in the Rumble, and they announced that next week Goldberg returns to Raw in Tampa. Strowman is then wandering backstage. He's scaring people away and walks up to Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho and says that he decked people in the halls last week. And Owens says that after he beats Roman Reigns at the Rumble, that Strowman is probably next in line for a title match. And Jericho and Owens come up with these made-up insults that Reigns and Rollins have been spreading about Braun Strowman, that they don't think he's that big. Ooh. Rollins thinks he should do CrossFit. Rollins thinks he's all hype. Jericho says he's a one-hit wonder, the Gangnam Style of WWE, and says that he didn't beat Zayn at Roadblock because he's a stupid idiot. And Braun Strowman says he hates rumors, and they do too, and he walks off. Mm-hmm. Braun kind of came across as like this simpleton here in this segment, just believing all this.
Man, in the whole show he did. And I wasn't that pleased with the treatment of Braun Strowman in this particular episode. I think a lot of the in-ring stuff is awesome. He comes across and kind of totally redeems himself there, but in these backstage segments, he felt almost a little too stereotypically cartoony big guy oaf, you know? He's just kind of scripted to play this big dumb idiot who's easily manipulated rather than someone that is strictly there to be feared. And I guess a comparison would be like, he's more like a Lou Ferrigno Hulk than, you know, the Avengers CGI Hulk that just everybody's afraid of.
Yes, a great analogy. Goldust was then with R-Truth, and Goldust is stating how Bill Murray was the greatest Scrooge ever, which I can't agree with.
Who is?
I would say George C. Scott was my favorite. Alistair Sim for some. George C. Scott, though, was my favorite. Bayley walks in. She has a gift for Goldust. And she gives R-Truth a hug, and she has given Goldust a Dusty Rhodes Bayley Bear in polka dots. And she says that she wouldn't be the number one contender if it wasn't for Dusty, and his guidance was what she owes everything to. Goldust says it's the sweetest gift he's ever received. And Bayley leaves, and then Anderson and Gallows walks in, calling them nerds, playing with Christmas toys, and Anderson steals the bear and rips its head off. And Goldust is very sad at his Dusty Rhodes Bayley Bear being decapitated.
Aside from the punk line from Stephanie, I this was probably the second most talked about thing coming off of this Raw.
Oh, wow. Was there a lot of discussion about this?
There was. Did you not see Cody Rhodes' tweet?
What did he say? I didn't see it.
Okay, let me pull it up here. Because Cody...
Was he offended by this?
Yes, he was.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, Cody said on his Twitter, "Not going to say something mean or blow a whistle. All I can say is that whoever produced that, I hope they never know what this feels like."
Wow.
So, yeah, he was clearly very upset. But then I guess he went on to have several back and forth discussions with people. And I think by and large, the reaction online was, this was a wrestling angle. This was something that people feel like Dusty himself might have booked. So, Cody, like how, they're thinking he's overreacting basically. And so Cody, several hours later, tweets, "Appreciate all the kind words tonight and even the dissenting opinions. I turned something private to public. I'm not perfect. I just miss him." So I feel bad. I feel bad for Cody Rhodes.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I think the fact is, when you look back, when he did his match with Chris Hero in Evolve last August.
Yes, this was brought up by some people.
Oh, was that brought up? Because, I mean, that was similar in that someone had one of the, like a giant, like...
face cutout
of Dusty that Chris Hero, probably just acting on his own, I'm sure this wasn't a planned idea, just grabbed it and started attacking Cody with it. And it was kind of cheap. I didn't really like it at the time, but it was what it was. And this, I mean, the fact is that Dustin was involved in this. Mm-hmm. I thought, to be honest, this was actually something that made a nothing tag match. There was at least something attached to it, but at the same time, it's like you almost like wasted something of importance. Not that this bear angle is a super heated angle, but it was almost like Goldust could be in something much more important and then do something attached to Dusty. Whereas this was just a throwaway tag match. You know what I mean? With the two comedy guys, R-Truth and Goldust. But watching it, I mean, I didn't really have much issue with it.
Well, it looks like they're working some type of extended program between the two teams, so maybe it is to lead to something else. But I'm with you. I thought as a wrestling angle, it was kind of cheesy and cheap, but it worked. Accomplished it. It not only worked for it not only gave me a reason to kind of hate Gallows and Anderson, but I thought it did well in showing off Bayley's character and getting her kind of showing off what she's about to the audience, who I think is still not really exposed to her yet.
Then they recap Nia Jax's attack on Sasha Banks from last week, and Sasha wasn't on the show at all tonight. Nia Jax took on local wrestler Scarlett, and Charlie interviews Scarlett and says she is excited to make her debut in her hometown, and that Sasha was the one who inspired her to get into the ring, as she is wearing her Boss t-shirt. Jax comes out, boots her in the gut, splashes her in the corner, lifts her into a Samoan drop for the win in 1:03, as Cole says that Scarlett is now gone with the wind. And Corey Graves was very disappointed in this lame line. And then Cole says, well, she's looking more like the White Sox than the Cubs. And Jax picked up Scarlett and leg dropped her again and tells her to pick a better role model than Sasha.
Yeah, I think this, I mean, of all the squashes we've seen from Nia, this might have been her best one. She, at this point, she took a break from these, and then I guess this is take two. She's now showing a lot more aggression than usual, I found. And to me, the squash looked a lot more convincing than the first time they tried it. This other girl, the Scarlet girl, took a real beating. And I think Nia's been showing a bit more confidence in front of the crowd. So there's improvement there.
Stephanie was with Charlotte backstage, and they were finishing up their conversation and shook hands as Charlotte just left. And then Owens and Jericho walked.
Was there not more to this that was just cut off on the broadcast, maybe?
That's what I thought, but I double-checked this. And no, this was just... It was the idea that they had just made some agreement that would be revealed later, which would be the Dana Brooke thing. So you weren't supposed to know the details of their arrangement at this point. Owens and Jericho come in, and they're upset that Mick Foley made the match with Roman Reigns for the Royal Rumble with Jericho in a shark cage. Jericho's complaining he'll be 200 feet in the air. He has a fear of heights. And then he asks if there will be spiders in the cage that could cause him to form blemishes and pimples, which would give him acne, arachnophobia. And says that, and Stephanie says she hates authority figures that abuse their power. And Stephanie announces that tonight it's going to be Owens against Roman Reigns for the U.S. title, with Jericho looking disappointed because he had clearly been angling for this U.S. title match tonight, and we left it with a shot of Jericho's face. So we see there subtly that Jericho was somewhat disappointed that it's Owens getting the shot tonight and not him.
Mm-hmm.
And another Owens-Reigns match, which I think I've hit my max on, and we know that we've got another 5 weeks until the Rumble. It's a fine match, as we've said, but they have just done this one too many times already for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any match. Like, you could... man. Even if you put Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask every single week on Raw, I don't know if I can get that excited for, like, the 5th, 6th time. You know what I mean? I mean... Yeah, it's way too much. And these guys aren't Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask, as great as the two of them are.
Maybe Reigns could get a Tiger Mask.
Yeah, sure.
I guess that would by default make Owens Tom Billington.
Yeah. No, it just needs to be something different. And, you know, we talked about this last week. The main event scene right now is just... It's basically these 4 guys, and Braun occasionally, I suppose. It looks like this week he's kind of reverting back to Sami Zayn, but you know, in your main event scene, it's only 4 people, and 5 weeks, I guess, is a lot of time to build up to that. So they're overexposed. This match is overexposed for sure.
So then Michael Cole, he notes that Byron Saxton went on Christmas night in Chicago to visit the Home Alone house.
Oh, okay. Nice. Good for him.
That's something to do in Chicago if you got some free time on Christmas. Bayley then comes out and she says, "I love Chicago. Holy moly." And she hopes that Santa got these people everything they wanted yesterday. And Christmas came early for her last week when she pinned Charlotte for the 3rd time in a row. And she's dreamed of becoming women's champion. This woman is just great. How could you dislike this woman?
Yeah, she's great at playing an 8-year-old, and which is exactly what her character should be doing. But like seeing her do this just makes me wonder what she'll be like as a heel. Inevitably.
I don't want to see this woman as a heel.
I'm saying in like 10 years, you know, like when she's done with this. Like it's like she comes across like a kids TV show host. You know what I mean? Like an after school special type, or you know what? Like it's, you ever watch like TVO Kids, or you probably don't, but did you ever watch like or whatever, like YTV?
Sometimes.
What the fuck was that? The Alley? You remember that with the Grogs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she's like one of these hosts.
If I tune into Raw in 2026 and it starts with Bayley coming out to an arena saying, "How many of you still believe in Santa?" I'll cry.
No, and she's ripping the Bears.
Oh, God.
Great.
Yeah. She has live bears for the children. I don't know. She's interrupted by Charlotte, and Charlotte says that she's apologizing for interrupting Bayley's cosplay moment, stating that Bayley did not beat her last week. Charlotte calls her a child and replays the finish from last week with Charlotte's shoulder getting up from the backslide. And Charlotte says her dad taught her to always have a lawyer and came to a settlement with Stephanie last night. And Bayley's win has been expunged from the record book, and it never happened. She says she knows how the system works and made it work for herself. And she was secretly laughing at Bayley all those years when she'd talk in NXT about becoming women's champion. But she's going to offer Bayley a second chance tonight. But in the settlement, she gets a referee to call it down the middle and reveals Dana Brooke as the referee for their impromptu non-title match tonight. And any thoughts on the Charlotte promo?
No, I thought Charlotte was great as usual.
So the match begins, and Brooke is admonishing Bayley right away, and it leads to Bayley giving her the belly to Bayley. Charlotte then attacks Bayley as Brooke is on the floor, and referee Derek Moore runs down, violating the terms of the settlement, and takes over the match. Bayley is then firing up and not selling as her head is run into the turnbuckle, and then starts bouncing Charlotte's head into the turnbuckle, hits a crossbody for a 2 count, and then Charlotte catches her with a backbreaker out of the corner, sends her into the turnbuckle, and then Bayley stops the figure 4, hits the belly to Bayley, but Dana pulls Derek Moore to the floor, stopping the count. Bayley goes after Dana, and then this allows Charlotte to roll her up using the ropes as Dana fast counts her in 3 minutes and 41 seconds.
Yeah.
I bet Bayley doesn't have a lawyer.
Probably not, no. Yeah, I guess this was fine. This was okay.
This feels like this match that you assume will happen at the Royal Rumble has to have some kind of stipulation attached to it.
Yeah, it'll be Dana in a shark cage.
It's going to be an all shark cage show. Maybe that'll be the way they enter the Rumble this year. They descend from the top of the Alamo Dome.
Wow. Maybe we'll have a Rumble in the shark cage.
I don't know how that would work.
The goal is to throw your opponent. Yeah, I don't know. They got to sell toys.
Stephanie is backstage and walks up to Braun, who is just attacking some random guy in the back, and he's searching for Sami Zayn. And Stephanie says he's got to be focused on Rollins, and he informs her, I am multitasking. He wants both Rollins and Zayn, and Zayn cannot be found, and says that he can have Sami Zayn next week on Raw, and Strowman says he will make sure Zayn cannot stand when he's done with him and wants a last man standing match next week, which Stephanie agrees to, but says, I want you to treat Rollins tonight like he's Sami Zayn and destroy him. And Strowman agrees to this.
Lines like, I'm multitasking,
I know,
are certainly written for comedic effect. They're definitely written to make somebody back there laugh. And I guess it makes me wonder how serious they're really trying to push this guy as a monster heel when they're willing to take comedic risks like that. You know, some of the comedy I think works, like him throwing guys into Christmas trees. It's funny, and I think it really works physically. But I don't know. I feel like some of those things in the back are. They probably at
the core of it, he needs to be a monster, and you can do things that at their core, he's being very violent, and maybe like a Christmas tree, it's kind of entertaining as well. But when we just detach him from this monster persona, then it starts to just be, well, it's comedy for the sake of comedy, and it's very momentary. But this guy kind of comes off looking like an idiot.
Yeah, I don't think he should be using lines like that.
Yes, I called balderdash on this. Neville and TJ Perkins were next, with Austin Aries replacing Saxton on commentary, and Corey Graves notes that he took a video game system away from his son that Santa delivered because he was worried he would turn out like TJ Perkins, which Austin Aries fully endorsed, and Graves says that Neville is a real video game boss.
Yeah, I like that line. It's interesting to hear Corey on this show because on 205 Live, he kind of has to tone down the heel a little bit on commentary because Aries is there. However, on Raw, throughout the rest of the show, he's totally playing heel commentator. So now when Aries jumps on to do these guest spots on Raw, you kind of have, two of the same. But I do sense Corey stepping back a little bit to let Aries do more of that on the show. Because, I guess Corey, it makes sense to keep him there. Yeah.
Michael Cole reminds us again that 205 Live is the exclusive home of the Cruiserweights as we get into our Cruiserweight match on Raw. Yeah.
They also Neville's Titantron now no longer has the rocket ship flying to the planet.
Oh no, it's been grounded?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they're not really going with that anymore.
Well, we will get into his the new,
he's got a new character,
the new layers of Neville, as Vince clearly listened to our last show and was brainstorming British characters for the new year. There was a head scissors by Perkins, and then he went for the spin kick that really didn't land, but Neville sold it anyway and went to the floor. And then there was a spinning pescado by Perkins. Neville then sends him into the barricade, and we got the 10 chants from the crowd. I hate these things. I hate them.
Already?
Yes.
See,
I hate these 10 chants. They drive me nuts.
Yeah, they're kind of... they were especially noticeable last week when the finish involved the 10 count. So it kind of ruined the finish essentially last week. But I think it builds confidence in a Ty Dillinger main roster appearance being successful. They could this is something they could take advantage of. Like maybe Ty Dillinger will whenever he debuts, he will try to force 10 counts and getting the audience to, I guess prepared to chant something like this will be a help for him. But the 10 chant, I didn't think it would leave Toronto. But it happened in Detroit, and now it's happened in Chicago. So maybe it'll continue to spread down south.
No, and it's happened sporadically over the last month. But it's just, I would already be instituting the new 20 counts from New Japan already.
It'll still happen. You'll just get the audiences chanting 10 all the way up to 20.
Yeah, well, 20 will be a tougher chant for them. The Dodon is hit by Perkins. He gets a 2 count. And then there's a springboard. Perkins catches Neville on his shoulders, hits the detonation kick, and then rolls for a knee bar. But Neville blocks and grabs the tights and pins him in 456. Then Charlie interviewed Neville at the top of the ramp and says when you leave a line of bodies, everybody wants to talk to you all of a sudden. And he blames Americans for always mocking his accent or his personality being too bland for television, or the fact that his face is not appropriate for Monday Night Raw. This clearly sounded like a Vince promo. He calls the Americans ignorant and arrogant, and that's why he isn't appreciated. He's going to beat Rich Swann for the Cruiserweight title tomorrow on 205 Live, and thus has issued the challenge to Rich Swann. So Neville hates Americans. Is our new direction for our lead Cruiserweight heel.
So the planet ship should be leaving America now.
Yes, so we have now introduced that he has a bland personality, an ugly face, and a hard-to-understand accent.
I feel like these are all things that people might have thought of him, but didn't say. So I didn't have a problem with the promo. I really liked the promo. I thought he injected a lot of, what could be perceived as real, I guess, misgivings about the audience in here. In fact, I was impressed with his delivery. I thought he sounded great. And you wouldn't have known that this guy was capable of this if you just saw his babyface run, because the guy barely had a chance to speak, much less show any type of emotion. And I thought he did that here. The anti-American thing, it's easy and it's cheap. But right now, you get the feeling that they would need anything that works for this Cruiserweight division. And cheap and easy works.
I just feel this was, on its own, I guess, whatever. It's just all these Cruiserweights, it feels like they're just having these new personality traits thrust upon them. And it's so forced. Like all of a sudden, this dude hates women, and this guy is above wrestling in these rings, and this guy now.
You're right. I forgot the Drew Gulak hating women. I can't wait to see.
There's that. Noam Dar is the womanizer. Neville, who's been in this company all these years now, he now hates Americans. It's like we need gimmicks for every single cruiserweight. It almost feels like the 94, 95 era when we'd have everyone come in with a stupid daytime job.
Yeah.
That's what the cruiserweights feel like right now, that we're just thrusting stuff upon people.
They're all one-dimensional, I think. And again, you're talking about Vince McMahon's interpretation of a lot of these guys who, well, let's be honest here, like watching a lot of these matches, they all still kind of, I guess Neville and TJ is sort of the exception because I feel like the two are kind of Neville's a bit of a star, but even saying that's a bit of a stretch. Like I felt it with Rich Swann and Aria Daivari later on. It really felt like it was an exhibition match, a dark match in the middle of an actual Raw. So trying to take the perspective of a mainstream typical Raw fan, you're watching this show, you don't know who these guys are. And I guess, in Vince and the WWE's eyes, the best thing you can do for two guys that nobody knows is to give them these one-dimensional characters, at least to start.
Well, we'll see where it goes. I think Neville has overachieved as a heel thus far in this quick, amount of time we've got to see him in this role. We'll see where it progresses, but it's fun to watch all these characters come out of nowhere.
I'll say, we heard some "Let's go TJ sucks" chants in the match, with a vocal majority of the "Let's go TJ" chants sounding like they were children. So, him doing the glasses and the whole video game thing, I think the kids are starting to attach themselves to him, it feels like.
We recap the sensitivity training segment and the beatdown of Enzo by Rusev and Jinder Mahal, and then Cass wheels out Enzo Amore, who's in a wheelchair. And this also followed the announcers plugging SmackDown in the wild card finals as Cole transitioned back by stating, "We are back here on the A show." So Cass wheels out Enzo, and they show this photo of his side all bruised from this attack last week. And Enzo calls Rusev and Jinder chicken and boneless chicken tenders as he tells Cass to step in the box because he's batting cleanup. And Cass dares Rusev to trap him in a room and calls him a coward, and he would slap the taste out of his mouth. And if you have a problem with Enzo, you have a problem with him, as he challenges Rusev to come out. So Rusev does, with Lana and Jinder Mahal, and they corner Cass and Mahal. Enzo is slapped out of his wheelchair, but then Enzo grabs Jinder off the apron as Rusev and Cass fight in the ring. Rusev is clotheslined to the floor. Enzo knocks Mahal into the wheelchair and ends it with the bada boom shakalaka off the steps onto Jinder in the wheelchair, and a big boot by Cass to Rusev as he flies off the apron.
I thought a good segment this week. I think the physicality was done well with both teams, and the surprise of Enzo getting up and attacking him despite being in a wheelchair, I thought worked really well. I feel like I've kind of figured out what is it, Enzo's style, and he's really influenced clearly by rap, I think, more so than typical wrestling promos, because he uses a lot of wordplay, a lot of metaphors, and a lot of punchlines in his promos. And I think that's part of the reason why his style of promo is so fresh.
He did an interview a while back, and he explained how he's got this giant book, and he's just constantly writing lines and coming up with ideas. This is someone who is clearly, it's probably every week he's just coming up with as much material as possible, because it's never just one clever line. He's got to do promos every single week, and I think a lot of it is probably coming from himself.
He's clearly, no writer is writing this for him, and that to me, again, kind of confirms that's kind of, he's like a typical freestyle rapper or whatever, he's like Rabbit in 8 Mile. Rabbit?
Oh, yes.
He's like Rabbit. He's, probably got his whole book of rhymes, or in this case, promo lines that he tries to come up with all the time. Cass, on the other hand, is a much more standard tough guy promo. And,
he's Mekhi Phifer.
Is he? Sure.
Don't you get the impression that the way like they have structured this relationship, it's like Enzo talks a lot of shit,
Yep.
and he knows he's got Cass to fight for him.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Like it feels like when they eventually break them up, that it's almost going to be Enzo will be the heel coming out of this, which to me is such a bad role for him.
I think Enzo will have to pair up with another big guy if he wants to be a heel against Cass. You know, Cass playing a heel against Enzo seems a lot more natural. But I feel like Enzo could be a great heel on the microphone. But then again, he'll just get cheered.
That's it. I feel he's so popular. People are just so entertained by him that why would you fight that?
Yeah.
With the audience. But that's kind of the dynamic you feel between these two, where it's just, yeah, it's like
small guy taking advantage of big
Enzo
friend.
talks a lot of shit, and then he just sends Cass out to defend him.
He doesn't really send him out, you know. Cass is choosing to defend his buddy.
Well, he had that line last week. He said, "I talk a lot of smack, and then I've got the muscle to back me up in Cass."
Yeah,
that's pretty much.
That's not really a heel thing, though.
Yeah, it is. It's like you're going to talk all this shit, but then when it comes to when it's time for the physical retribution, you're going to hide behind Cass.
I wouldn't say it's a heel thing though, but that's kind of like just, you know, a gang.
He's a troll online that's got a big brother.
Yeah,
who will deal with any possible problems.
Right. And the big brother is more than willing to fight his battles.
Well, for now. But you totally should side with Cass here. It's like, why do I have to deal with all this guy's shit?
I hope they don't.
I didn't do anything. I didn't go to the hotel room that night.
Yeah. I hope they don't split these two up anytime soon. I don't think it would be beneficial for either one of them. I feel like you can still do a Cass singles run without breaking the two up.
I feel these two could be broken up by coming out of Mania. I think they're going to really look at that main event scene. I think they are going to totally fast track Cass.
You could break them up.
Me.
Yeah, you could break them up. No, you know, as single stars. But do you need to, you know, have them feud with each other?
No. I don't think you have to do it that way. I don't think people would honestly dig that. I think it would very much be like when they tried it years ago with the Hardys when it didn't work and they split them up and no one wanted to see them fight. I think that this would be the same thing. I don't think they would get into a feud between these two. The Shining Stars then took on Darren Young and Bo Dallas. Match that you knew could not last too long. Young, Dallas, and Backlund are holding up their certificates with pride from sensitivity training. And the match was made after the Shining Stars tried to sell Bob Backlund on timeshares in Puerto Rico for his retirement.
Yeah, I guess
these Raw pre-shows, I mean, boy, are they enticing me to tune in 10 minutes early.
Yeah.
Primo drop-kicked the knee of Young, and then Braun Strowman comes out, and on his way down, he grabs one of the Christmas trees and walks down to the ring and attacks Bo Dallas with the tree. Primo dives into a forearm from Strowman. Then he attacks Darren in the ring. Epico uses a chair to the back, and Braun no-sells it, attacks him with a clothesline. Then on the floor threw Darren into Backlund, and then throws the steps at the other three and gets cheered. The crowd is chanting, "Thank you, Strowman." And then they start chanting Strowman in the same style of Goldberg. And Cole says that Darren Young is no longer great again. So for all the backstage booking of Braun Strowman, this was them booking Braun Strowman like the monster. And I thought this was great.
Yeah, I thought so too. This was a really great beatdown. A lot of physicality. I think he's starting to. I mean, he's always really excelled at these things since he's come up to the Raw main roster.
Is this guy a heel?
Yeah,
because I feel everyone is now. He's closer to a babyface now than he is a heel.
That is true. Especially on this.
Like this segment was a total babyface segment for him, killing these guys in the ring.
I mean, but you know, the Sami Zayn stuff will tell you he's still a heel. I think people are just entertained by him. I think it's inevitable that he'll ultimately be a babyface if he continues to be, you know, as entertaining as he is. But it's like Brock Lesnar, you know, he comes out and just squashes people, suplexes people, and it's entertaining, despite the fact that he's booked as a heel most of the time against his opponents. But I think it's interesting to note that, you know, they haven't had Braun do this with any of the cruiserweights yet, which is, you know, I think the fear that I think everybody was joking about when they announced the cruiserweights for Raw was that, you know, they would do something like this. But, you know, judging by crowd reaction, they would have every reason to have Braun Strowman come out and destroy the cruiserweights because they are usually one of the quieter segments on the show. But the fact that they haven't done it, and I think the fact that they won't do it, you know, perhaps for fear of online criticism, that's one thing. But I think it's also them trying to make a real effort with the cruiserweights right now.
Man, could you imagine that match? Braun Strowman and Jack Gallaher. Brains versus Braun.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I don't really love it for the career of Jack Gallaher, but could be. There's potential, obviously.
There's lots of comedy for Braun if this push fizzles out and he kind of goes into Great Khali territory. I mean, Jack Gallaher, putting him into that pretzel.
Oh God, I don't think that's happening.
I mean, it's the ultimate sign of a character that has.
I also don't know if Braun Strowman could twist into that position.
These are the questions that match would answer. Braun then took on Seth Rollins, and Strowman hit him with a shoulder tackle, and this following a Beal. He then missed Rollins and ran shoulder first into the post, and Rollins was trying to get him off of his feet with a pair of springboard knees. He gets caught running into the corner. He kicks Braun away and finally hits a blockbuster to take him down. Rollins takes a back body drop to the floor after attempting a pedigree, and then Sami Zayn's music hits, and he comes through the crowd, attacking Strowman from behind as the bell is called, 3.5 minutes, and then sends Braun repeatedly into the post on the floor. And then Strowman chases after Sami with a leisurely jog to the back as Braun, this big monster should not be running. That is not a trait I need to see out of this big bad monster. And then Jericho appears and nails Rollins with a code breaker, then a second one as the officials are in the ring and the crowd cheered Jericho. To your point, I think not necessarily living and dying by Seth Rollins as a babyface.
Especially against Jericho.
Yeah.
Who I feel like they largely kept away from a live audience, you know, for free, on this particular episode, because they knew that he would probably get cheered a lot. And I thought Jericho actually got booed for most of this until he did his Drink It In Man taunt, which the crowd loved. So anytime I think Jericho pulls out the catchphrases, he knows he's going to get a reaction for it. You're right. You're absolutely right about Braun running. I thought it's such a small thing, but it's one of those small things that I know Vince would be super detail oriented about, you know?
Yep.
And I don't think Braun running necessarily was the best look. You're right. The match I actually liked a lot, Strowman and Rollins, and it wasn't much. There wasn't any finish here. It wasn't a very long match, but Rollins bumping everywhere for Strowman, he's essentially doing parkour off of the guy, you know, jumping off of him like he was a brick wall. And I thought he played a great underdog. You know, he was just basically playing a small guy trying to break through a brick wall. And I thought Rollins was very entertaining. I thought Strowman played that brick wall very well. So
that's the best line of this show. Dude,
honestly, and it's not really as easy as it sounds. You know, you have to be a convincing monster, and I think Strowman's been doing a good job of that. So I would actually like to see an extended program with these two. I do have a bit of concern for the health of Seth Rollins at some point, but you know, if these guys were to work a ton of matches together, but I think it would be very entertaining, and it would actually maybe be a good chance for Seth Rollins to actually play a sympathetic babyface.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I remember the 24 they did on Seth Rollins, and there's a comment from John Cena stating how There's something about Rollins for like racing to get back for WrestleMania, and Cena's explaining that this is a key guy for us for the next 10 to 15 years. And you watch not so much this match as opposed to others where he's just doing everything. It's almost like he has this response of, oh yeah, you think I'll be here 10 to 15 years? Mm-hmm. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Owens is watching this all in the back as Charlie interviews him about the chance to win the U.S. title. And he says he tuned Charlie out immediately as soon as she began to speak. He is happy about Jericho attacking Rollins, means there is no doubt there will be a new champion tonight because now Rollins can't get involved in his match, and it will be Owens and Jericho as the new United States champion. Jericho comes in from the arena and hugs Owens, states that Reigns is all alone, and Jericho ends this by calling Charlie Chuck as they take off. Then we had the Emmalina promo this week with a voiceover from Emma that we've waited so long, and it will be worth the wait.
Yeah. There can't be anything else but the Eva Marie gimmick, could it? The gimmick now is just she's making you wait. Right?
Yeah, which kind of seems to be played out now.
And where is... Oh, I guess Eva Marie is coming back, right?
She should be back pretty soon. I think her movie is done, that she was off filming, so... She is back. She did have that wellness violation, but that expired months ago. Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows against R-Truth and Goldust. Gallows hit a big boot and had the advantage on Truth, who fights back. Goldust is tagged in, and Goldust fired up, throwing Anderson into the barricade. He stomped him down, and the announcers are putting over how fired up Goldust is. And then Goldust clotheslined Gallows to the floor, but has his back to Anderson, who uses a schoolboy and pins Goldust in 342.
Yeah, Goldust was, you could tell, really trying hard to wrestle more aggressively. Like, you just tore the head off of the bear that represented my dad, so I'm going to really kick your ass. But this crowd really didn't seem to care. And in fact, even watching this match, I had kind of forgotten about that segment. I mean, I didn't necessarily forget about it, but the heat certainly died down. What was it, like an hour and a half after it already happened? So I didn't necessarily feel like the heat from that bear head tearing segment really carried across in this match.
Rich Swann was walking in the back and passed by Noam Dar chatting up Dana Brooke, which I assume Alicia Fox will have zero knowledge of on 205 Live moving forward. Rich Swann and Arya Daivari were up next, and Aries returns to commentary. Daivari had the advantage, missed a splash off the top. Swann comes back with clotheslines, a double foot stomp to the back, and the spinning wheel kick for the win in 1:25. Nothing here to really discuss. And then Charlie interviews Swann, who calls Neville, children, earmuffs, a royal sourpuss.
Oh.
It says that Neville is, I'm sorry, I had to recap it. Neville is one of the best athletes in the WWE. He accepts the challenge for the title match on Tuesday, and then Neville attacks him from behind on the ramp and drives him into the side of the ring and injures his back, and then finishes with the red arrow to the back of Swann. So that will be the story going into the title match tonight, with Swann having an injured back.
It was a very aggressive beatdown. I think Neville has really impressed on this show, both on the mic and in his aggression physically. Are you okay?
Yeah, I nailed my microphone.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I too am being very aggressive.
I thought Neville attacked you. I feel like it's inevitable that Neville will get this Cruiserweight belt, and I almost wonder if they'll do it tomorrow because, in my opinion, he is he's already the most over guy in the division, simply, due to how established he is. And I think his level of talent. So I could see them being tempted to really do it. I hope they don't do it yet because I feel like that'd be one too many title changes in a short amount of time for this belt. And I also don't feel like they've really given Rich Swann a chance to get over yet. What are we, like 3 weeks now into his title run? And I don't really know that much more about the guy.
He's outlandish.
He's just a guy who comes out and dances. We don't really get much character pieces. We don't even really get to see a real promo from the guy, you know? Here, I mean, Royal Sourpuss, that's terrible lines. But beyond that, he's a guy who comes out and smiles, and that's it. I've never seen the guy put it through any real hardship. You know, outside of those video packages, I haven't heard much of his story, and I can't tell you that, you know, aside from being a guy that knows how to dance, I don't get the sense he's really over at all.
I'm assuming 205 Live will be, in fact, live Tuesday night, and I'm curious what the crowd is going to be like, because there's going to be a ton of people that went to Raw last night that are coming back tonight. It's in the same arena, who will go through SmackDown. You have those title matches, you have Cena's return, and then the Cruiserweights follow that. I mean, for those that go to back-to-back nights, and this is what it ends on, is this title match, that's going to be tough for an audience that's seen a lot of wrestling in 24 hours.
It'll be very tough. And if you're going to go with that model, which is a terrible model, but if you're going to go with that model of putting Cruiserweights on last, I feel like Chicago is maybe one of the best places you could do it in. You know, this crowd really is really the best crowd you could do one of these types of matches with. You know, a smart marquee crowd that you would assume would be very familiar with a lot of names in the Cruiserweight division. But even watching this, I didn't feel like Rich Swann, to me, like I said, it felt like a dark match in the middle of Raw. And it's something that they really have to change, I think.
Charlie then interviewed Daivari backstage to get his deep thoughts on what factors led to the loss tonight, and says the only factor in the loss was the threat of interference from the scoundrel Jack Gallaher, who walks in and offers Daivari the chance to retract his baseless slander, and Daivari doubles down, calling him a scoundrel, and Gallaher says, "You have impugned my character," and challenges him to a duel, taking out his glove and backhanding him with it in the cheek as he took off. So is this going to be at the Alamo with guns, a duel?
It'd be more of a medieval duel, I feel.
Oh, I thought they could just draw firearms on one another, and one Cruiserweight stays and one dies.
I think it'll be with swords and chainmail. Yeah, so tomorrow they're going to have a gentleman's duel match on 205 Live.
Well,
yeah,
a PG duel.
PG duel, yeah. I think Gallaher is getting some great reaction, especially amongst the Cruiserweights. You know, he's a guy who immediately stands out. I would say probably more so for the character itself than the in-ring, which is, in my opinion, the best part about the guy is his in-ring. But it seems like on Raw, they're really emphasizing, again, you know, sort of a one-dimensional version of Jack Gallaher in that he's a very, very polite British stereotype.
So then they did a feature on Bill Goldberg, again promoting his return for next week. And the main event was Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens for the United States title.
They also announced Zayn versus Strowman in a last man standing match next week.
Yes, we've also got that for next week as well. So the crowd was pretty hot at the start of this match. There were back and forth chants for Reigns, and Owen was utilizing a headlock early on. Chris Jericho came out fairly early in the match, and Owens was able to hit Reigns, who was distracted by Jericho with a DDT for a 2 count as they went through a commercial break. Owens had a rear chinlock applied. This did lead to some CM Punk chants, but they didn't take off by any stretch. Owens then sent him to the floor into the barricade. Reigns came back with the drive-by, and then Owens hit him with a backstabber. Reigns stopped a pop-up powerbomb, catches his kick, and turned it into a sit-out powerbomb for a 2 count, and then set up for the Superman punch, which he missed, and that was another roll-up, got up, and then hit Owens with the Superman punch. And then Reigns starts shaking the ropes like he's the Ultimate Warrior or Batista, and this crowd hated this. They hated this, the idea that his power is surging. And he goes after Jericho on the apron and ends up hit with an Owens codebreaker. Reigns kicks out, and Owens looks at Jericho as if to say, "Did you not teach me this correctly? What happened?" And then Rollins runs down and hits Jericho with a pedigree on the floor. Owens then super kicks Rollins on the floor, comes back into the ring and takes a spear, and Reigns pins Owens. And the announcers are explaining there's a lot of bad blood between Reigns and Rollins, but they are putting the past behind them to fight common enemies. And then the camera cuts away as Rollins does a crotch chop. I wrote the wrong thing here. And then pedigrees Owens here. And Reigns runs around the ring and spears Jericho to end the show.
Very hot crowd for this, for the whole thing. I can't say the enthusiasm really rubbed off on me in particular, just as a viewer, because this was, like I said, my 5th hour into watching this 3-hour show. And I was just really bored with this combination. And then, coming out of the show, was this match and all the development amongst these 4 individuals, was any of it worth watching? Did any of it carry the storyline forward? No, this was a missable episode of Raw, at least as it pertains to the main event.
Yeah, it was a match that we have seen. It feels like, I don't even feel they've done it like a ton of times, but it certainly feels as though we got to fill our 15 to 20 minute main event slot.
They have done it a ton of times. Didn't they do 2 pay-per-views together already?
No, they just did the one. They did Roadblock. And prior to that was
before.
Then it was all the Owens and Rollins matches before the Survivor Series.
Okay. I guess they all kind of look the same to me.
So that was Raw. They built up to some stuff next week, and we're kind of just in a holding pattern until the Rumble. And next week certainly feels like a more important show based on the fact that Goldberg's on the show. They do have a match to promote with the Last Man Standing, because you had nothing going into this show announced ahead of time. Unless you watched the pre-show and knew that Bob Backlund's honor would be defended against the Shining Stars. Yeah,
I would say a very average episode of Raw. We didn't get one of the pre-produced segments, like the sensitivity training or the hotel room segments. Nothing, or the barroom brawl segment. We didn't.
Well, a lot of places were closed around Christmas, so maybe it was tough to do any pre-tapes.
Yeah, it is a holiday. But I am looking forward to SmackDown definitely much more than Raw.
Yeah, they've promoted a lot for SmackDown. I'm looking forward to it tonight. But let's go. We'll get to some of the feedback here. I don't know if we'll get to all of it. Mark from Vaughn writes, there's a lot to criticize weekly, but I've enjoyed Braun's build since there's development on each show while the main event is in a holding pattern, waiting for the Best Friends breakup and Triple H's return. If we get KO against Jericho and Triple H against Rollins at Mania, is it safe to assume this Braun build for a title match with Roman, or am I projecting too far out? Do you see Braun, Strowman, and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania way?
Strowman, Roman, Mania.
I don't think so.
Well, who else do you put against both men?
I mean, I could see Braun winning the Battle Royal. I could see him in there.
That's such a nothing spot, though. That's almost too far below what he should be doing. That's the jobber Battle Royal.
Yeah.
That'll
I don't know.
Be on the pre-show.
Perhaps, given whatever the length is of WrestleMania this year. I don't know. I just see something maybe bigger for Roman Reigns than Braun Strowman. And that's a risky match to me.
We got a Trent from Texas. Let me guess. You guys say Neville is so much better as a heel and much more comfortable on the mic as a heel as well, which is easily the biggest cliche by wrestling podcast hosts. There is a reason for that. Being a heel is much easier, especially on the mic, and it makes for a much more interesting character with more depth. Almost every wrestler is better as a heel, and can we finally just say this? I wish you guys would finally acknowledge this besides repeating this cliche like most wrestling reviewers every week.
That's such a dumb conclusion. I mean, to just use such a wide brush like that, it's easier to be a heel than a babyface. I would say, first of all, I'll say in the WWE, I think that they have a tougher time booking babyfaces, but the actual act of being a babyface, I don't think it's rocket science. I don't think that Bayley is somehow this revelation of, oh my God. To me, there's plenty of great baby faces out there, but I think for a lot of younger talent, I think being a heel can definitely get your comfort level there.
Yeah,
like a Randy Orton, for instance. I think him being a heel early on after being the squeaky clean babyface, that can certainly help. But I don't think it's just something like, oh, it's as simple as being a heel is easier.
No, not necessarily. But I mean, I feel like it's a given if you're a wrestling fan, knowing that it's easier to get people to hate you than it is for them to cheer for you. But what I don't get is, do you want us to mention that every single time somebody finds success as a heel? Should we?
I just think his argument falls apart when you go outside of the WWE and you look at strong babyface acts that are out there. That it's there's plenty of babyfaces that thrive in that role. I would say on the independent level, in other promotions, it's almost tougher to be a heel because there's entertaining heels that people just treat as babyfaces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, let us continue with MJ. I think the Raw brand is really booked into a corner. Roman is United States champion and in a Universal title match in 5 weeks. There's a long time to not drop the U.S. belt and look weak, and therefore the secondary title is more useless than ever. Plus, how many weeks can Raw build to the same guys in the main event? And giving away matches between Owens and Roman and Charlotte and Bayley is a hell of a way to build heat heading into matches at the Rumble. But what else can they do? Plus, is Braun heel or face? While it may not matter now, I imagine it will if he's ever put in a top spot, which seems likely to be coming up.
All right, we go to Pastor Doug from Chicago, Illinois, who says, I really wish the crowd would stop cheering CM Punk. He gives zero shits for any of these people. Steph with the comeback to the CM Punk chant was great. You could tell she had two in the chamber for the crowd tonight. The Shield reunion troll by Steph was great as well. What are your guys' thoughts on the CM Punk chant still to this day? How much longer do you see the chants continuing, or do you see this as a continuing sore spot for Chicago crowds? Merry Christmas.
I don't even find that they're all that prevalent, to be honest. I don't really care. It's, they pop up. There's chants all the time. I mean, yeah. I get more annoyed when there's like chants for like the announcers, which is kind of just the audience's way of saying they're hating a match, which, I mean, even that, I just, it's kind of your job that if you lose the crowd, win them back. Stephanie shut down the chant. That's kind of part of it. It's you have an arena full of people that you're not going to be able to control how they react. So when they act in a way you don't, come up with a way to circumvent that. I don't really care, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think we hear them even all that much anymore outside of Chicago. And
it's small pockets. I mean, even, tonight they were at least acknowledged, but yeah, it's not like they're that prevalent.
No.
Chris, who is also in Chicago, writes, I was there live tonight, and I'm not sure how it came across on TV, but aside from a few smart chants, the crowd felt uncharacteristically quiet. This was my first Raw event live, and the pacing of the whole show felt really off, especially seeing them take apart and put together the purple Cruiserweight ring setup 3 different times, twice for Raw and once for the main event taping. Aside from Braun destroying people and seeing Kevin Owens, the rest of this show felt forgettable or poorly booked to me. P.S. Way to make Sammy look like a credible face, WWE. Have him hiding from a guy who he won against just to jump him from behind and run like a bitch. I hope Strowman destroys him next week in the same way that I hope Rusev ultimately wins out against Cass and Enzo. I give this Raw 4 out of 10.
That's true. Did they ever explain where Sammy was? Why
he came from the crowd. Yeah, he wanted to.
Where was he today?
Oh, you mean prior? Why he wasn't at the arena? Yeah, they didn't explain that. He was late.
Yeah.
Maybe he was hiding the entire time in the crowd, taking in the show.
Okay. We got a Rise who also attended the show in Chicago tonight. This was only the second wrestling event I've ever attended. The first one was Payback earlier this year. The highlights, I would say, were Braun Strowman picking up a Christmas tree and whacking Bo Dallas with it before he killed the other man in the tag match. The crowd enjoyed him so much that they chanted, "Thank you, Strowman." And the best one was when they did the Goldberg chant but used Strowman's name in place of Goldberg. Also, the crowd really enjoyed Kevin and Jericho as well as the skit with Jack Gallaher. Gallinger. As was written. Stephanie owning Punk got a huge moment from the crowd, and the CM Punk chants would not return until around the main event. The Chicago crowd seemed live seem to enjoy the Cruiserweights more than it may have come across on television. I have to say that being at Raw for 3 hours live is a lot worse than watching at home because you can't fast forward, and whenever you think a match is about to start, it goes to commercial. The crowd really does make the show, and Chicago was great.
James from Wales. Raw just seems increasingly to be a badly booked slog. The Dusty Rhodes angle was terrible, more so given Lillian Garcia's recent loss. Yes, her father passed away on Christmas. And it's a reflection on an increasingly unenjoyable show. It seems you have to go back to Bill Goldberg to see the last positive, uplifting moment on Raw. Given it's meant to be entertainment, it's not entertaining me very much at all. Another great Christmas show, great interviews, especially Tyson Kidd and Morrow. Was great to hear from them with such positive mindsets.
Yeah. Positive, uplifting moments. Do you think Raw and wrestling in general is lacking in positive, uplifting moments?
I do feel that at times they don't necessarily always let the baby faces, I don't know.
Celebrate.
I don't even know.
I mean, in the end, like you are trying to sell conflict.
Yeah, you are. I think there's also, you do want to see the baby faces triumph at times. And I know kind of John Cena is the outlier here. However,
we did see Enzo and Cass, come up on top, but it's a back and forth. And, almost all the time you have to have the heels come out on top, at least heading to the pay-per-view, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always different sets of circumstances. I wouldn't say as a general rule, it's one description you can have.
Fuck,
what is this?
Did you hear about Carrie Fisher?
Oh no, what happened?
She passed away.
Oh man, that's awful.
Yeah, I just read it. So that sucks.
Wow. Well, let's do one more here, and then we will end this end this show.
Yes. Sorry to end it on a sad note. It just came across my feed.
Well, let's hear from Ollie at Bryden's.
Okay.
For a night that I assumed would be a nothing night, Raw wasn't that bad. Decent advancement of the Cruiserweights, or the 205s, they seem to be calling them both, so I'm not sure what to call them. Pushing Strowman as a monster is working him. Going around just killing people actually makes for fun TV. However, I'm finding Nia Jax is so boring. Everything about her is just so bland. The Owens-Reigns match was quite good. They have decent chemistry, and it had a big match feel. But I'm not sure if I actually thought that, or if it was Cole telling me that a dozen times. And will either of you ever join in as a guest host for Keeping It 2000? I am kind of sad that that's a time that won't get review-awayed anymore. Anyways, thanks and have a happy new year. Well, that show is going to be premiering on Friday, and we haven't quite figured out what the rotation is going to be like for that show. It is not going to be a weekly show at liveaudiowrestling.com. Perhaps myself or Wai will pop by, and contrary to Ollie's assumption, we will still review shows from that era if there is a reason to do so. I think it's going to be very different shows. You're going to find out pretty quickly from Review Away and Keeping It 2000. But you can listen for yourself on Friday. And that should bring our show to a close, Wai, where we will be back on Wednesday, tomorrow, reviewing SmackDown, possibly 205 Live, and Talking Smack, the final Talking Smack of 2016.
Yeah. The final one. Yes.
All right. So that is coming up. This week on the site, we will have, in addition to review of SmackDown, What's Next will be a special 3-man booth for What's Next. It will be Jason Agnew, Braden Harrington, and Bartender Dave going through their best and worst of NXT from the past year. There is no MMA report this week, but in the meantime, you can listen to the Ronda Rousey documentary ahead of her fight on Friday. And then this weekend, it is the Law's Best of 2016 show. It is airing late on Sunday because of some sport. So the show will not be on until 1 a.m. Eastern on Sunday night. However, it will be on the site, and you can download it instantly. So that is coming up Sunday night, liveaudiowrestling.com. And that is it for myself and Wai.
And thanks to everybody for their feedback for the Christmas show.
Yes,
John, congratulations again. I think one of your best. You've been a very busy man over these holidays, putting some great audio content together, and I feel like this Christmas show has been great. Some great feedback. heard
yes.
about it.
Yeah, I got a ton of feedback on the Christmas show, so thanks to all of you who checked it out. It was a lot of fun to do. And I want to thank all the people that voted for the annual Sheedy Awards as well.
Yes, the Talking Sheedy Awards, highlighting the best in professional wrestling podcast journalism. And congratulations, John, on winning Best Host and Best Voice.
Best Voice. That's one that can go on the resume.
You really do have the best voice in wrestling.
I've never given any thought to my voice.
You won't lie. You do have a great voice, a very professional sounding voice, very smooth voice, very what's another adjective? Sultry.
Oh, sultry.
Sultry.
Well, that's very nice. Well, I encourage you, if you want to go check it out, go check out the Talking Sheet podcast. They do a whole rundown of all the various awards for all the different wrestling sites out there, different shows, and check out all of the nominees because there's some excellent shows out there that you can, if you haven't checked them out, I encourage you to do so. So go check that out. And that's going to wrap it up for us. We're going to be back on Wednesday, review a SmackDown, and enjoy your Tuesday evening.
Well, if you're going to go back there and find him, maybe I'll go back there with you. We'll teach Strowman a lesson the way we used to teach people lessons.